can you see this person's perspective,
Right.
but can you see beyond this barrier that is in front of you right now? And we do get to that place of gratitude and actually appreciation. Now, it takes us refusing to stay in a victim mindset in order to do that.
Well, we ain't gonna be in no victim mindset today. How are you, Terry Pugh?
Well, it'd be great if I could get my phone to sit up, but I'm on my phone because my computer has decided today that in the last 5 minutes that it didn't want to do this. And so, yeah, it's all good. I'll hold it with my hand.
It's just it is what it is. And I hate to use those cliches like that, but you know what? I have had more technical difficulties in the last 24 hours, and I don't know why that is. But you know what? It's still kind of a miracle that any of this works.
It really is. I'm going to turn sideways and see if we all go sideways.
There you go.
That's better for me. I can see you better.
Okay, good. Well, first of all, welcome back from your adventure.
Thank you so much. It was lots of fun, exciting, and also adventurous. So there's
Well, I saw a bunch of the adventures, and I don't know how much you want to go into and what you want to share, but I think the cool thing to celebrate is that you had a lifelong dream, and you and Donna just jumped right into it with both feet.
Yeah, it's been on our list. We go somewhere. My Donna, I say she's my aunt. She's more like a sister to me, but we go somewhere every year. And we didn't go last year just because there was a lot of life changes happening. And so we just picked up again and took off this year and went to Denver and Monument Valley and all of that. And it was so much fun. And it was so beautiful and refreshing and rejuvenating. And then I ended up in the ER having a cardio conversion and got on a plane then a day and a half later and flew back here. So, it was at the end of our trip. So we lost one day of shenanigans, but it was a beautiful trip. And I would do it all over again with the exception of the emergency room visit. But yeah, it was good. It was great.
Well, and you're good, and you're good now, and yeah.
I've got to have another ablation done, so they're going to do that at some point. I don't have that on the books just yet because I haven't gotten a doctor just yet, like a new doctor up here. So, but it'll all work out. I'm not fretting over it.
Well, God bless you and all that. I mean, there's not anybody that has not been touched by medical issues. Sometimes whether it's on a trip, I've been dealing with my own with a reaction to a weight loss drug, and pancreatitis is no party either. So there are things, things happen in life, but that kind of got me started, and I've heard this with a lot, and I don't know if anybody has been able to watch. I don't normally watch the news, but I have been paying attention to what our friends in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and of course, North Carolina and East Tennessee right now are going through with this
absolutely
horrible weather stuff. And when the situation looks bleak, when the news is bad, when things are like that, how do we keep going? And that's the thing right now. I think that many of us are, and then there's so much unrest and dis-ease about what's going to happen to our country. I mean, we're up for a very volatile, at a very volatile election period. Everybody, every year at election time, it's volatile. Well, no, not like this. It's volatile. Our country has a lot of things going on. And I don't, yes, we've had worse division. I mean, Abe Lincoln had a lot of division that he had to deal with, this little Civil War thing that broke a country apart. But what I'm boiling all this into is when our situation looks bleak, when we're walking through a dark time, how do we do that? We need some tools to help us kind of get through it. How do we keep our head above water, so to speak?
Well, I mean, I think it's a huge part of that is staying in the present moment, watching the people that you keep company with, watching the things that you put into your mind, watching those things. Though I know a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm just so stressed out right now. And then the next time I'm talking to them, they're talking about they're engaging with, they're on social media, reading stuff, and they're rehashing stuff, and they're engaged with people that stress them out. And I'm like, you're doing this to yourself. So, you've got to be willing to hit a pause button and step back and
Mhm.
look at the things that really matter, and and prioritize. A lot of people are addicted to drama. A lot of people are addicted to feeling discord. A lot of people, that feeds them on a subconscious level, and you got to be careful with that, because it will sweep you away if you're not. So, I
Mhm.
tell people all the time, make a list of things that you can do for yourself during the day. I mean, it's just not rocket science. Make a list of things you can do for yourself during the day and do them. And they don't have to be huge, but, have a nice cup of tea, have a nice cup of coffee, sit outside for 5 minutes. Start with something small like that, and
Mhm.
really monitor the people that you give your energy to and the people that you are so willing to take energy from. I
Amen.
yeah, we're in an election year, and people are crazy on both sides, and but
Mhm.
if people get stuck in that whole, oh my God, it's just horrible, it's horrible, then it is going to be horrible, because you're setting yourself up to look for it, to dissect it, and to attract more of it. I had people.
Elizabeth says, I avoid news and politics as much as I can. I know it gets me all twisty inside. And her hashtag, not too drama.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, it's, I've had people that when they were asking me about my trip, I told them, what had happened, and just basically we went on the same thing I said just a second ago, and their response is, oh my gosh, I bet that just ruined everything. Oh my gosh, and I'm like, what? Like, it happened to me, not you. So don't transfer all your stuff onto me, because I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be careful when we do get in. I've got people that I think the world of, but they watch stuff on TV, and then they just live by the TV to see what new things are going to unfold next. And I'm like, well, life is unfolding. Like, there's some beautiful stuff happening outside. There's, the weather's, I mean, I guess it's still hot in Tennessee, but the weather is, you know, cooling down, and it's there is also catastrophic things happening other
Mhm.
places. You can be mindful of that. You can donate, you can volunteer, you can do things to help in that arena, but you also have to know what your battery is for all of those things. It's
Mhm.
not saying just, in your own little corner of the world everything is good, so everything's good all over the place, but it's about knowing your energy. Just told a client this morning, you got to know your energy, because you've got to be able to say, I don't have the bandwidth to talk about this right now. And sometimes
Well,
there are going to be things happening to our neighbors, to the east of us, all the way to the coast. There are things happening that they don't have the bandwidth to talk about right now either. Sometimes you're just in survival mode at that point. And so
mhm.
there's a big um, scale, so to speak, or a spectrum of being able to take care of yourself in your nice, cozy home versus being able to take care of yourself when you have no electricity, no food, no water, and your home has been washed away. They're on the
Big
same
difference.
they're on the same spectrum, but they're at different places. So there's different ways. One size of taking care of yourself does not fit all.
Absolutely. There's a new book out, and I don't know if you're familiar with, he's a comedian, he's a radio host, he's just the funny guy who keeps us laughing, and that is Ricky Smiley. Ricky Smiley is very much on a lot of social media. He has a morning show in Dallas, and he is hysterically funny. Well, a year ago, he got the phone call that his son had passed suddenly without warning. And this man who kept everyone laughing suddenly had this burden of loss that was, this kid was his best friend. This kid was his constant hang. This kid was following in his dad's footsteps. And he has a new book called Sideshow. And it's basically you're going along one way and then something wham hits you, and how you deal with it. And he said it, like you just pointed out, it's different for everyone. When the situation looks very bleak, how you deal with it. And he said, he said, I'm going to tell you, he said, I got a lot of grief from people sometimes. He said, I started watching comedy because comedy has always healed me. Comedy clubs, comedy on TV, comedy on the internet. I had to do something. He said, in the midst of a bleak situation, he said, you have to consistently find little pockets of joy. And he said, how do you have joy in the midst of all this sadness, in the midst of the bleakness, in the midst of... And I started looking at some of the stories from North Carolina and East Tennessee specifically. And I kept seeing the joy in the helpers that started walking forward. There were so many little miracles amidst all the horror and all the stuff. There were these little miracles. I saw this one story, how this person couldn't get out to get their insulin, and they were in a situation, and how they had a friend who had a drone they droned in the medicine. And it was this little moment, how this little bit of technology and this little bit of stuff helped. And I thought, what a sweet happening like that. And I thought, look for the stories of joy within the bleakness. I said, and that's kind of the way out, because humanity and life is a matter of days. That's what we are. That's the only thing we're promised is, okay, you have a present, and that's what you have.
Right. Well, and I would tell people too, because even in a situation like, to the east, sometimes depending on where a person is, they're not going to see things as joyful, because it's not joyful for them right now. So, a sweet moment, a soft moment, a tender moment, a peaceful moment. Those are some of the languages that people can use, because sometimes it's despair is despair. There's no painting it pretty. It's just shitty and unfortunate and painful. And those, unfortunately, are moments that it's okay not to find joy in that moment. It's okay to be in that place of, this is an emotion, a feeling, an experience I've never had before. And it's okay to become familiar with it, but not to become hostage to it.
One of the things I found interesting with Ricky's story, he said, I found myself a crying spot. He said, it's the third step of the stairwell in my house. And he said, whenever I felt like it was too much to bear, he said, it's very difficult for men, especially men in the African-American community, to cry. And he said, but I gave myself permission when I was sitting on the third step. I gave myself my crying spot. And he said, I wailed. I screamed at God. I screamed at everything. I just let it out. I poured it out. And he said, I realized that I had been carrying that inside me. And he said, he encouraged. So first of all, one of his things is comedy, but that was not the first thing. He said the first thing was find yourself the crying spot and give yourself permission to wail against whatever's happened. And he said, give yourself that day, as many days as you need it. Give it at any time. When you need it, go sit on your crying spot. Go find yourself a place to let it out. It's like a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
Let the steam off.
Whether you're crying, whether you're thinking, whether you're silent, whether you're napping, whether you're journaling, just a place that you can go to do whatever it is that you need to do. I have people come to me all the time and they're like, I think I'm a sociopath because I don't cry. And I'm like, not everybody cries. Not everybody cries. Some people they emote differently, so they don't cry. It doesn't mean they're crazy. It just means they don't cry. And that's okay. You know, that is okay. Some people, you can tell them the funniest joke in the world. They don't laugh. That's okay too. People find their, you know, that's the thing, is we've compared ourselves so much to everybody else that people don't know what is indicative of their own processes and what works for them to process what they need to work through, and in
Oh,
order
that's good.
to have agency over what works for them, you know.
Oh, that's really good. Elizabeth says, for me, I remind myself that my problem is likely a first world problem. It helps me keep what's going on in perspective. You know, gratitude list and things like that are good when you're from outside looking into a problem that is devastating, like we're experiencing with all the people that have lost so much. It's easier for me to do a gratitude list than it is for, I think, that some of these people who've lost so much, they've lost lives. I mean, I think at last count, they said there were still 1,000 people that are unaccounted for. And I can't even imagine what that is. But I do know that praying into that situation, giving into that situation, volunteering if you can, those are some things that can be helpful in getting your way out. But if you're in a place where you can't do any of those things, I always suggest find something in your world that you can put your good energy into. No matter what you are, no matter where you are, there is somewhere that you can volunteer your time. 1 hour a week, and it might turn out to be the best hour of your week. You know, I've heard people say, well, I'm just too busy. I'm just too busy. I'm just too busy to volunteer. Well, I venture to say that 1 hour of TV time or 1 hour of kvetching could probably be placed somewhere to the good.
Well, we make our own for the most part. So, and people will argue, they'll argue that, and they'll say, well, no, I have to work and I have to do this and I have to do that. If you believe that, okay. But we really can, we prioritize. And I tell people this often. We can say, you know, if I sit around and said, you know, oh my gosh, I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time, I can guarantee you that the people in North Carolina and East Tennessee, there was probably some people in their world going, I don't have time to do this, I don't have time to do that. They're just like all the rest of us, right? Well, I didn't have time to go to the ED on my vacation, but I found time. You know, people now are struggling to get food, water, shelter, find their home 15 miles away, find their loved ones. They weren't planning for this. We can prioritize when we are in a healthier place to do the things to take care of ourselves. Some things happen and it's out of our control. It is truly out of our control. These folks,
that's the thing, is practice this. It's literally, whereas it's like holding water in our hands like this.
Well, the thing about it is these folks are, and not just, I don't want to just constantly put the spotlight back on people who already have enough going on and to use them as an example. But anytime in life something happens, whether it's a health thing, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's the loss of a loved one, whether it's whatever it is, the loss of a job, you lost your car keys, whatever. There's always a ground zero to that. And when you find yourself at the ground zero there, you are not going to be at the same place that the person on social media watching it going, oh, wow, that's horrible. You're not in the same place that person is. So the expectation that you should be able to be something other than what you are being in that moment is unrealistic, because most of the time you're in shock. And so it's going to take time to get out of that shock, you know, before they're going to see a bright anything in this. It's hard to have someone lose a loved one, or lose their home or lose their job and go, well, look on the bright side. Because when people do that, I tell them all the time, those are things not to say. Like there's an actual etiquette to what not to say when someone is going through something. But because of our life experiences and our history, our family histories, we learn what to say. Oh, eat something, you'll feel better. Oh, stay busy, you'll feel better. Oh, everything's going to be okay. Look on the bright side. Keep your head up. Well, any of us out there that have gone through anything in life, when you know you're in the belly of the beast, when you know you're there, you just want to hit somebody over the head with a skillet when they tell you it's all going to be okay. It's not that you're a negative person. It's just that your brain has shut the receptors off to that because you're in survival mode. So they're not in that mode, so they can't relate to you. So that can be challenging.
Shar joins us. Shar, I hope you're okay. That you fared all the storms and stuff. I haven't talked with you. Elizabeth says, I'm definitely not a crier, but doesn't mean I don't feel things deeply.
Absolutely.
And, that's important to know. Our emotion, I always say that we all have ways of emoting, but it may not come out in liquid form. It may not, that might happen. And I cry at the drop of a hat. I cried at a McDonald's commercial that has like a dad and his daughter having breakfast together. I mean, it's just those things. I'm a very easy cry. I am very much the empath who feels everything in the room. And so that's how I do it. I never judge anybody because they don't feel the same way that I do and to the magnitude I do, because sometimes I wish I could shut that off just a little bit. Shar says, I'm okay. I just have heartbreak for all. I drive through Asheville all the time on my travels. Teri will be right back with us. I have a feeling that we're having some technical issues now. And I don't know if this is not, unrelated to the storm. I don't know about you guys, but I've had internet issues ever since. We've had some communication issues, dropped phone calls for absolutely no reason. So there she is. She back. We're talking about, I said, I don't know about y'all. Okay. Elizabeth says my internet's been hinky all week. Yeah. We just remember that all of our connection networks are all connected until they're not. And so there are a lot of things that, where we are, that we were not prepared for how this storm would affect everything inland. I know, being a Louisiana native, I've never known in the history of storms where a hurricane missed the coast but hit inland in the mountains. I've never heard that in my whole life. And there's been a lot of hurricanes in my life.
And it's the water, the velocity of the waters that broke the dams that, just like poured in Katrina,
Yeah.
And I know, I will say this, and this is a little off topic, but I know that people try to find humor in, when things are going on. They try to find humor. They try to make things better. They try to, and we can police ourselves so that people are like, oh my gosh, you're the buzzkill police. You don't want us to have any fun and yada, yada, yada. But I did see something on social media yesterday, and it absolutely crumbled my heart. And there were a lot of, they had put music to it. There was a lot of funny, like people were trying to make funny comments, and the caption was supposed to be funny. But I don't know where. I'm assuming it was in North Carolina. I don't know where it was, but it was showing the floodwaters and the rapids just going and going and going. And then there was a lone casket that was just tumbling along the waterway. And people were, I'll say being insensitive, to say the least, being on this side of the stuff that I do with end of life. That to me, it looking at the comments, looking at the captions, I was saddened because there's a void of compassion. I'm not saying everybody has to be a bleeding heart, but there's a void of compassion that, I don't know if there was somebody in that casket. I have no idea. But if there were, I don't know that jokes and funny music is really, I also understand there's a heaviness, and everybody handles things differently. But we have to be more responsible with what we post, with what we take in, with what we
Ooh, good.
on. We have to be more responsible with that stuff. Because what happens is we become desensitized. We
Hmm.
become desensitized by what we see on the news. We become desensitized by other people's pain. And when we become desensitized, this is going to sound harsh, but I think we become a little less human.
Oh, absolutely. Elizabeth absolutely agrees with you. As a culture, we are lacking compassion. And Shar very honestly says, I try,
Yeah.
and that's true. She also says, I checked on the Butcher Holler people, my friends I've met there. They said if the creek running through Butcher Holler wasn't dried up, they would have also flooded. That's the thing about it. So, it's so interesting too. I think just 3 weeks ago, we were complaining about drought. It's the worst drought we've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the tributaries and those were so dry that they actually provided a route for some of this water to go.
Right.
It's, so we never know the full plan and how it all works together, but there, I will say that in all of these situations, when the situation looks bleak, as we start walking through it, help when you can, help how you can. Uh, but seek something in your own world to nourish yourself, nourish your soul, nourish your being. And sometimes it I always say whatever you take in comes out.
Mm-hmm.
If you take in garbage all the time and you take in bad news and you take in angry thoughts, I mean, if you succumb to the fights on social media or whatever, you can do that, but it's not going to nourish your soul. It's
I
not
think
going to nourish your soul. It's not going to make you better.
right, and excuse me. I think another thing to keep in mind is we have to take ourselves out of the equation. And what I mean by that is a lot of people will say, well, if I do this and I do this and I do this, then, I feel better about myself. But it's not about
Mm.
themselves. Like it's literally putting someone else first. So, when I see people, we have a lot of people in the world that are people pleasers. We have a lot of people that are fixers, a lot of people that are rescuers. We got a lot of people doing all kinds of volunteer work and rescue work and all of that. And it's not a bad thing, but you have to take yourself out of the equation. You're not doing it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing it to help others. Because if you're doing it for yourself, yes, helping others can lift our spirits and help us feel good. But if the intention is I'm going to do this and I'm going to be seen as a good person, I'm going to do
Oh,
this and I'm going to I'm going to let everybody know how, what all I've done and how much I've done, then you might want to check that, because
it-
then we're not doing it from a pure heart. We're doing it because we're getting something out of it. And
mm-hmm.
that's what I say, we devolve as humans when we put ourselves, and I know this is totally contradictory to when I say put yourself first. But again, we're talking about a spectrum here, right? If you've
Yeah.
got a situation on the daily where you're being where you've put yourself in a position where you're being mistreated, or you're being, your needs aren't being met, your mental, physical, emotional, spiritual needs are not being met, you have to put yourself in a position where you can start to meet them. You're not going to meet all of them right out of the gate, but you can start to meet them. That's a different thing than doing things for other people, putting someone else first. When someone else is in a time of need or a crisis, they get to come first. Now, that crisis does not mean that it's your best friend or your spouse or your kid that just continues to choose poor choices and be on this loop where they are constantly have you on auto dial and you're running in to rescue them. That's not the same thing as someone who has had a life event happen, like we've seen to the east of us, and they need to be prioritized and put first.
Yep. Amen. Amen.
What you can do within your level of comfort of doing. And if you can't, if you think to yourself, well, there's nothing I can do, you can always send a prayer. You can always send a positive thought. There is always something that we can do. We as human beings are pretty skillful that way. There is always something that we can do. Get online and find an organization, donate to the Red Cross, go give blood. There's always something that we can.
You know, I look at the people who are on site, because I'm from Louisiana, our United Cajun Navy was on hand first and foremost. They were there first, and nobody knows how to deal with floodwaters better than them. Nobody. There ain't nobody. They were raised in it. That's who they are. They had the helicopters brought in. So people like their Samaritan's Purse, you cannot get better than them. They are on the ground with food and water and supplies almost immediately. Mercy Chefs, also from Louisiana, they're on hand and they're cooking. They're making hot meals for these people. And any meal is good. But when you go up and someone has made you a good hot meal, it's something that helps you in a way that you can't even describe. There are people who are doing little things like doing laundry for people. I mean, they're the laundry people who are showing up and doing people's clothes with their mobile laundry units and stuff. And I think you think about the practical ways that you can help, and even a $10 donation to an organization that is boots on the ground is so important. And I am so grateful for all those people who jump in both feet. But as we look at, find a way to give if you can. When the situation looks bleak, look at what you're taking into your entertainment time, the movies that you watch, the stuff that you read, the stuff that you take in on social media. You can make changes there when the situation looks dark and whatever. Always look for some slivers of light, the little slivers of light, because they're everywhere. We are reminded every day that, whenever it says humanity sucks, everybody's bad, nothing is good, I will guarantee you that you can find something good, because man, the stories of good stuff I have seen is incredible. And last but not least, the book that I mentioned is called Sideshow. It is by Ricky Smiley. It just came out mid-September, and it's powerful. It is powerful. And, when you're going through immense loss, and you deal with it all the time, Teri. And so as I turn things over to you to close out our show, when you have experienced the loss of a child, which a lot of people have lost their children in this event that we just experienced, the loss of a child, I think, would be insurmountable. But you deal with it all the time. And as I turn things over to you.
Well, I would say this, that also condition our brain to expand on what we see as a child, because a lot of times, loss of a child, when we say that, most people think a small child. But there are 70, 80-year-old adults out there that have lost their 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old child. There are people who have never had kids who have lost their horses, their dogs, their cats, their whatever. That is their child. It's never to minimize, it's always to expand. So to expand on how we interpret things and we see things, and to know that, it has been a very tumultuous week. It's been a rough week. And I say that sitting from the comfort of my own home. It's been a rough week. It's not been nearly as rough for me as what it has been for those other individuals. So if you go through the rest of your week, if you're so moved to find an organization, you know, like I said, to donate to find a food bank or a clothing drive, or if you've got a lot of stuff in your house and you want to rehome something, and find an organization that you can give these things to, contact the Red Cross, see what they can do, because folks are going to be starting over from scratch. And first and foremost, they're not going to have anywhere to put this stuff. So start there if you want to start there. Also understand that in order to charge someone else's battery, you have to keep your battery charged. So make sure that you are taking in healthy, nourishing information, food, rest, fluids, energy from other people. And you know, as we always say, you know, as we go through the week, do something kind for yourself, but also know that there are other people that they need kindness as well. And let's not continue to devolve and break folks down, but let's build folks up. And that will be reciprocated back to us. It will be reciprocated back. It'll find its way back. So we don't do kind things because we think we're going to get kind things back, but it's as simple as letting somebody out in traffic, you know, and throwing your hand up as a thank you. It can be so simple, and it's
It
the
can
small
be.
that matter. And we start that by doing it with ourselves. And you know, the tagline that we say in this show all the time is increase your peace. And you know, increase your peace, because by increasing your peace, you are putting peace out into the world. And you're increasing your love, you're increasing your happiness, you're increasing your compassion, you're putting all of those things out there. And we're in a deficit right now. So
yeah, well, we're getting a lot of hearts and a lot of people. Michelle has joined us, and Elizabeth and Shar, and everybody is echoing that back. As this week, if we have not learned, pick up the phone and call somebody you haven't talked to in a while and just say, hey, I haven't talked to you in a long time, but I love you. It's amazing what a 10-minute I love you call to someone you haven't talked to. So a shout out to my friend Ken, and a shout out to my friend Bernie. I talked to her last night. I hadn't talked to her in forever. I mean, I've just started saying, okay, let's pick up the phone. Not just and a text is great. A text is great, but hear somebody's voice. Hear another human being and say the words "I love you" to someone. If you haven't told somebody lately that you love them, don't waste a day. Don't waste a day.
If you love them, if you don't love them,
No,
don't tell them you love them. You might start some stalker shit. Then don't go. You know, or tell somebody you miss them or you're thinking about them. You know, I've got a client that's going to be going through some pretty rough stuff on Friday, and she crossed my mind this morning, and I just sent her a text and I said, hey, I know it's Wednesday. Just want you to know I'm thinking about you, sending you lots of positive thoughts and lots of love. And I know the rest of this week is probably going to be nerve-wracking, but you know, you've got this. And you know, she responded back with the sweetest thing, and it was just like, just let people know that they matter in your life. And that, you know,
and Teri is the queen of sending a card with a little something, something, something inside it. And she sent me something not too long ago that has this little sparkly in it to remind me to sparkle. And I got that hanging up in a window. And sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and the sun will catch that and hit it just right. And I just like, there's Teri. There's Teri giving me a sparkle today. And, you know, it's those things that you may not realize, but she is the queen of that, and she sends really great cards. And so the power of a card at the right moment is just powerful. And so publicly, I wanted to thank you for that. It came at a time where I was in a hole. I didn't tell anybody, but you knew it.
You're very welcome. I think that when we allow ourselves to just be seen without saying anything, you know, you do have a beautiful light, and it deserves to shine. And I get it. Sometimes some little asshole comes around and just turns the dimmer down as low as they can turn it down, and it just feels like, good Lord. But don't ever fret that light can shine just as bright as you're earmarked. We are all earmarked with certain gifts and talents and things to share in life, not necessarily do or be, but things to share in life. And the very fact that we are walking this earth is a testament to the fact that we have within us an unlimited amount of gifts and things that we can share. And those gifts don't have to be something that 300 years from now somebody remembers us. I'm not a Thomas Edison. Nobody's going to remember me 300 years from now. But you know what? My neighbor will remember me today because I offered to do something for her earlier, and she was like, "You don't have to do that." And I was like, "I want to." I didn't do it to get a kudos back. I did it because I wanted to. And so matter to yourself, and know that when you matter to yourself, you matter to others. And if you,
Amen.
you know, if you can't find the love for yourself, you're probably going to attract people who are going to continue to keep you in a loveless relationship with yourself. So that's that.
I love it. Well, you guys, we're here each and every week, whether it is by vault or by live, like it is today. Even if we limp along with cell phones and they go out and our internet goes wonky, we do our best, and we are human beings, and we do have life, and life happens to us. And physically, we might have limped a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but come on. Nanette, I'm talking to you. Sometimes we live, sometimes we vault. but we always love you.
Good either way.
Either way, and we love you no matter what. We love you no matter what. Thank you to everybody who's part of our show. And
Absolutely.
Teri, you want to close it? I turned it over to you, and I took it back. So there you go.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, I'm going to keep it real quick, and real short, and real simple. Increase your peace. Now go on and get.
Bye, everybody.